Hello folks, so I've been getting a bit of grief lately from some of you for not doing enough used car content. So one in particular that people keep asking for is a new family cars video, and I don't really see the point in doing another one that tells you exactly the same cars as previously but shows you new examples. Maybe at some point I will. But right now, I feel like it's time for something different. So in this one, we're going to look at cars that you possibly haven't considered. So when it comes to family cars, most people are looking at things like Qashqais and C-Maxes or a Tiguan, but not too many people are considering some of the cars in these videos. And there are one or two little gems in here. They're all under 80,000 miles. They're all ULEZ compliant. None of them are advertised as being insurance write-offs, although I hope you know to do a V-check on them. Link in the video description for that. And if you don't know why that's important, go and watch that video for the love of God. Now, one quick caveat with everything here is you must make sure everything's got a full service history. I'm just picking out some cars here, some examples of the kind of cars I'm thinking of. That's not to say any of these in this video are ones you should go and buy. You should always do a V-check. You should always make sure it's got a full service history, and you should sort of check and verify that service history. Make sure someone hasn't just bought a stamped the book a few times and filled in the blanks. All you need to do now is give this one a thumbs up and we'll move on to the content. Done it? Great! We're going to start off with this one, the Datsia Logan Mcv. Not the most exciting car in the world, not the most exciting design in the world, but it's utilitarian, it's practical, and it's not going to break the bank. Now, it's quite a big car to have only 90 brake horsepower, but 30 quid a year on your car tax, group 7 on car insurance, which is really low, and a combined MPG of 56.5. So it's only a 90 horsepower engine in this, so you're not going to get epic performance. 0-60 is 11 seconds. It's not hideous, but where this thing really excels is on the running costs. Annual road tax of 30 quid, group 7 on the car insurance, which is great, and 56.5 mpg is claimed. And then if we look at the boot space in this thing, you've got 1500 litres with the back seats down, or with them up 573 litres. You could rent that thing out on Airbnb, it's so big. As I said, they're never going to win any design awards because, you know, they look like a child's drawn a picture of a car. You know, the Renault parts bin has been raided to put these things together. All the parts are tried and tested for donkey's years. If something does go wrong, you're going to be able to source parts cheaply. And there's really not a lot of fancy technology on it to go wrong. It's a car and not a lot more. So that one's a 2013 with 62,000 miles on it at 5 grand. Right, the Suzuki Sx4 S-Cross. Now these have been around for a long time and most people have never heard of one, okay? 76,000 miles on this one, 5,695 quid. 0-60 in 11 seconds, 430 litre boots, that's a really good sized boot. Group 13 on the car insurance, 135 quid a year in tax, and 51.4 mpg is claimed on the combined cycle. So that's a 1.6 petrol, nothing wrong with that thing. Suzuki cars always do well in reliability surveys. It's not the most exciting car to look at, but is that important to you? Not to everyone, and beauty's in the eye of the beholder, really, isn't it? You might look at that thing and think, "Fwah." So that one there's 2013, 76,000 miles on it, 5,700 quid. Okay, next is the Citroen C4 Cactus. Now, these things are odd looking, aren't they? And it's probably a bit of a love or hate thing. I actually don't mind the look of them. Obviously, they look like someone stuck some egg boxes on the side, but I don't mind the look of them. What I hate most in car design is when it doesn't do anything. I'd rather be offended by the look of a car than bored by it, and this is interesting at least. You can say that about it. It's interesting looking. I actually do quite like it. And the C4 Cactus is a surprisingly practical and fairly decent car to drive. To be honest, I ordered a hire car in Spain a couple of years ago and I was gutted when I saw it was a C4 Cactus. So I thought, oh God, this thing's going to be god awful to drive. It was great. I really enjoyed it. They are fairly basic, like pop out windows in the back, for example, but it's less to go wrong. And if you're buying a 7-year-old car at this kind of price, that's not a bad thing, is it? Less to go wrong. Let's look at the numbers on it. So running cost, group 16 on the car insurance, 20 quid a year road tax, and 65.7 mpg is claimed. This is a 2015 PureTech Flare model. It says here sat-nav, reversing camera, timing belt done. The sat-nav is TomTom based as well, so it's actually quite decent for a built-in sat-nav. 0 to 60 is 9.3 seconds. It's only a 1.2 with 108 horsepower, and the boot in it is 358 litres, or pop the back seats down and you've got nearly 1200 litres. The boot's really deep, which is great. We got all our luggage in for a 2-week holiday in the back of that thing. As I said earlier, with all these cars, service history is an absolute must. Next is the Kia Soul. I recently did a review on the EV Kia Soul, the new one. It was a little Postman Pat Red affair. Link to that up there. That was a great little car, to be fair. The thing with the Soul, again, it's a bit of an odd, funky looking thing, but it's a bit of a love or hate. I must admit, most of the people that saw the one I had here really seemed to like it, with 1 or 2 exceptions, I must add. You've got high driving position, nice roomy cabin. The boot could be bigger, but it's perfectly adequate for most people. You can certainly fit a decent weekly shop in the back of it. And they're really just quite a fun little thing to drive around in. Running costs on that one, you've got Group 17 on the car insurance, 180 quid a year on tax, and 44 mpg. This one's the 1.6 petrol, and you'll see it's a 1. In Kias, they tend to do the spec in quite an easy way. It's 1, 2, 3, 1 being the base spec. So this is base spec, so don't expect a lot of bells and whistles on this one. 52,000 miles. 6,295 quid for a 2014 model. 0 to 60 is 10 seconds, and you've got 340 litres of boot space. Don't forget with Kia, by the way, this one's outside of its warranty, but Kias tend to come with that 7-year warranty that is transferable to different owners. So if you do pick one up for say 10 grand, you pick up a newer one for say 10 grand, you might still have manufacturer's warranty on it for a couple of years, so that's well worth looking into. Right, okay, who doesn't know about one of these? The Infiniti Q30. So if you don't know Infiniti, think of what Lexus is to Toyota and what Genesis is to Hyundai. Infiniti is that to Nissan, okay? They're no longer producing Infinitis in the UK because they didn't take off. I don't think they got the pricing right on them, and they didn't do particularly well in the sales, but they're actually very good cars. This one's a 1.5 diesel. It's a 2016, 9 grand. It's the premium tech version. In my eyes, that's quite a good, interesting looking car. And it's going to turn a few heads. And certainly a lot of people are not going to have a clue what you're driving, which is never a bad thing. I do like that. So running costs 20 quid a year on road tax, Group 14 on the car insurance, 68.9 mpg. It is only 12 seconds to 62, so it's not quick. It's only 108 horsepower, but with that kind of efficiency, is it a surprise? Boot space is not on here, but I know it's 360 litres more or less. So it's not a huge boot, but again, perfectly usable for a number of families. There you go, there's a shot of the boot. Next is the Mitsubishi Outlander. Now this is the plug-in hybrid. These were massively popular a few years back as company cars because there's quite a good company car tax benefit for having one of these plug-in hybrids. And they're big things. They're not great to drive, but they're big, they're cavernous, you've got nice high driving positions, and they're fairly frugal. So for such a large SUV, you've got 11 seconds to 62, so you're not breaking any land speed records in it. You've got 463 litres of boot space, and you can pop the back seats down to give you nearly 900 litres. Your road tax is free, your insurance is Group 24, and then combined MPG, it's one of these ridiculous figures that you get with plug-in hybrids. You're never going to get anything like that from it, but a lot of people claim to get around about 60 mpg from it, which is really quite reasonable for such a large car. And there you go, there's your Outlander PHEV. Boot's not massive, you lose a bit of space because the batteries are under the floor there, but it's nice and wide and reasonably deep, and a nice shape to get things in and out of. The infotainment system is absolute tosh in this thing, so I would suggest that if you were to buy an Outlander, you maybe keep 500 quid aside to stick a different head unit in, because that is pants. Aside from that, it's just a big, pretty comfortable car in all fairness. 70,000 miles on that one. That's a 2015 plate, and it's just under 11 grand. That would have been a really expensive car when it came out, and it's lost a fair amount of money. It's probably not a bad time to pick one up because it's done quite a lot of its depreciation. So next one's a 2017 Seat Ateca. The Seat Ateca is quite a decent little car, and this 1.6 diesel I think is a peach of an engine if it's well looked after. That's the key, if it's well looked after. We've got that same engine in our Touran, and we went to Norfolk and back last week, did lots of day trips in it. We got 750 miles out of a tank of diesel, which at the moment is not a bad thing. Running costs on it, 165 quid a year on tax, combined 62.8 mpg, and group 10 on the car insurance. 0-62 in 11.5 seconds, and you've got 510 litre boot. And I mean, the Ateca, this platform shared with various other cars from VW Audi group. It's not difficult to get hold of parts, second-hand parts if you need to. So it's something that you could look after and keep running for quite a few years to come. At the time I'm recording this, petrol's just gone absolutely through the roof again. 12 grand this one, Toyota Auris. It's a 2013, so 12 grand's a lot for a 2013 car. But these Toyotas really do hold their value well, and it's because they're just massively reliable. So it's an estate car, as you can see, nice and practical family car. Fairly standard Toyota inside, so it's going to be rugged, it's going to wear well, but it's probably not that luxurious in terms of the quality of plastics and things that you find. And your infotainment's probably a bit poo, so you might want to look at upgrading that. So why, pray tell, should I buy one of these cars, Jim? I'm going to tell you. Look at this, running costs. Group 12 on the car insurance, 0 road tax, and 78.5 combined MPG. The downside of it is 0-60 is only 11.2 seconds. It's got CVT gearbox. It's not going to be particularly exciting to drive in any way, but it's massively frugal. Think of it, I guess, as kind of a Prius with a big boot. It's a hybrid and not a plug-in. Probably get one cheaper than this, but this one's only got 55,000 miles on it. Boot space is 530 litres, so it's fairly large. So it's very practical, very cheap to run, and it's going to be pretty reliable. Just not the most interesting. Now look at this one, it's the Skoda Yeti. Yeti's a brilliant car. I think it got European Car of the Year when it came out. We had one for a couple of years. It was a brilliant car. Some people love them, some people hate them. Sometimes that means you can get a great deal on a used car. This one's a 1.2 petrol. They also do a 1.4 petrol. They do 2 litre diesel. 180 quid on the road tax. 44.8 mpg. 0-60 in 11.3 and 416 litres of boot space. The Yeti really is all about the driving position. You sit nice and high, your passengers have got plenty of room, and it's something a bit different, and that's no bad thing. This one's an automatic, it's got the DSG gearbox. Again, make sure that thing's been serviced. A well-serviced DSG is a nice thing to have. One that's been neglected is a bad thing to have. So that's a 2014, 8.5 grand. Next we've got 2017 Honda Civic Estate, and this would be my pick of the bunch really. 68,000 miles. This one's a manual, diesel, 1.6 diesel. Group 15 on the car insurance, 165 quid road tax, 72.4 mpg. 0-62 in 10.3 seconds, and the boot is a whopping 624 litres. So it really ticks a lot of boxes for a family. It's really cheap to run. Honda are one of the most reliable car brands, again, as long as you keep them well serviced and you look after them. And you can fit your wife, kids, your dog, your nan, your suitcase, your shopping, all of it fits into that car with ease. It's ginormous. 2017 model as well for 11 grand. I mean, that really does seem like a decent bit of value. Now, I mentioned earlier the importance of doing a background check on a car, and you'll see on all these cars on Auto Trader, it'll give you the basic history check. So it looks like it's HPI clear, and often in the dealer's write-up they'll say HPI clear. And that's often the case because an HPI check doesn't look for unrecorded write-offs. I did a video on this which I mentioned earlier. I'm going to put a link to it at the end. It's going to show you how you can see cars advertised as HPI clear, and indeed they are HPI clear. that have actually been written off, and you see them in their pre-accident state. Now, the site I use for my history checks is VCheck, and there's a link to that in the video description. The reason I use VCheck is they check for many more things than an HPI check does, and one of the things they look for is a history of the car on salvage auction websites. And if they find it, you'll see the pictures of that car with the accident damage before it was fixed up. And you can then make an informed decision as to whether you think that car you're looking at is worth the money or not. If you haven't seen this video yet, go and watch it, because it really is an important one for you to see, and the more people that see it, the better. So just before you go and watch that video, please give this one a thumbs up, please subscribe if you haven't already done so, and then go and click on that. Go and check that video out. I think you're going to like it. See you next time.